Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Kieran and I help people using a spiritual perspective. Now, one of the things that I wanted to talk about would be the mating habits of koala bears. It's actually really interesting, but I'm going to go ahead and instead talk about something maybe spiritual instead of that, which is the difference between ego and intuition, which can sometimes be very confusing to differentiate kind of which one's which, right? So I'm only going to speak from my experience and how I've been able to tell the difference, right? I mean, it doesn't mean that I always am 100% listening to my intuition or anything like that, but I can kind of pinpoint like what's definitely going to be one and what's going to be the other, right? So there are a few ways, but most importantly, I think, is intensity and volume. It's the two biggest ways to tell the difference between ego and intuition. So we'll start with the intensity of something. Now, this can both be in the way that it repeats itself over time, but also in the way that it presents itself, which can feel very intense, right? So it kind of starts in a physical sensation. So with the ego, start in alphabetical order, with the ego, things often seem very like there's a pressure, right? Time usually involves something to do with time, like you have to do something today. You have to do something now. And if you don't do it now, then something bad will happen or you'll miss an opportunity, right? But the truth is, you won't miss anything that's meant for you, right? So the ego tends to think about things in this kind of like rushed process, like you need something to happen now. So your physical body ends up feeling a little bit agitated, a little bit anxious, a little bit nervous. Your heart won't feel rested. It'll feel kind of fluttery, very, kind of as if you just did a line of cocaine or something. That's kind of, I don't know if you've ever done cocaine before, but as someone who has, I mean, not recently, but in my life, I can tell you the ego is very much like someone who's doing cocaine. That's kind of what it feels like. It's very like constant moving. It's uppity. It's energetic, right? But it's this kind of intensity, and it really relies a lot on having to do something immediately and having to do it now, right? So you feel it in your body as a physical sensation of almost dis-ease, right? Like a uneasiness, and anxiety and anxiousness, right? You start feeling it like that. So it's intense. And then there's the volume, which is the actual voice inside your head, the way that it's speaking. Now, for me, what I've been able to tell about myself, I can't say that this would apply to every human being that exists on the planet. But for me, my ego tends to come from kind of like the front of my consciousness, the front of my brain, or you could just say in general, kind of up here. That's where my ego tends to manifest itself from, right? Whereas the intuition, in my experience, again, usually would come from like kind of like here, if that makes sense. If you can imagine wisdom and stuff coming from anywhere, it feels like it's coming up, at least for me. Maybe you're the same way, maybe you're not, right? But the ego always tends to be very loud, and it tends to be, and kind of over and over again, there's this intensity, there's this anxiety, there's this pressure to do something, and a lot of it is kind of just based on, if we don't do it now, oh my God, what's going to happen? And it's just very, very, very loud, right? Intuition is quiet, right? It whispers, but the intensity is also a little bit different. So if the ego is just kind of like constantly moving up like that, I don't know if that was me having a seizure. It could have been. Hopefully, I was just trying to make a point clear. But the ego tends to just rise and fall very, very quickly, very, very quickly. But over time, you'll actually kind of forget about it. Whatever idea or something, telling you to do something, it'll kind of dissipate. But intuition is more of a nudge. It's this kind of nudging, so to speak, that while not as loud, right, and certainly not as obviously intense, it persists. It persists quite deeply, and it will keep nudging you every so often, maybe every day. It'll just be one of those things that keeps on telling you you should do something, you should take this action, or this person is bad, or this person's good, this situation will help, this situation won't help. It'll kind of keep reminding you softly, yeah, but it won't ever go away. Whereas an egoic idea, let's just focus on the concept of an idea or something, it'll kind of go away. Right? Once you remove the pressure and everything, if it's not based in anything real, it'll just disappear, right? So the intuition tends to softly lean in with reminders, whereas the ego tends to kind of yell at you with pressure. And there's, it's different. And so the ego is obviously the one that's the easiest to listen to. but intuition will physically show up as a kind of relaxed state. You won't have a sense of time. You won't have to feel like you have to do something today. It kind of respects you in a sense. Intuition tends to respect your own autonomy, your own self-worth, right? Whereas ego just kind of makes you feel like if you don't do something, you suck, right? And so there's these very clear differences in how each one plays with your self-esteem and your self-worth and your confidence, right? Ego tends to never really make you feel good in the long term. And it's just kind of a shortcut kind of energy, and it's just a lot of pressure, and it's very loud. And intuition tends to just quietly get to where it needs to go, and it will always constantly remind you, right? And so your physical body, when in doubt, if you can't trust what's going on in your head, your physical body will let you know what's the best one to listen to, what's actually happening, and which one's intuition and which one's ego. So I don't think we rely on our physical bodies as much as we should. A lot of people, they only do that for like a vain sense, but our physical bodies are very, very good at telling us what we need, what's good, how something reacts in our body, whether even people, right? The way that our body physically reacts to other people, also really, really good indicators. So even when you're in doubt over the mental differences between intuition and ego and logical differences between the two, you can always tell physical differences, right? Again, intuition will make you feel calm, ego will make you feel rushed.